Hello, my name's Casey. I'm here with Inquire Media, and today we're interviewing Mr. Michael Gould. We've just had the hustings here at the University of Kent, the general election hustings. So, firstly, as the independent and noticeably the one without a manifesto, what are the key points you'd like to convey to the voters this election?
Well, actually, it's not true to say that I didn't have a manifesto. My manifesto has recently been delivered to every household in the constituency, but obviously it may not have been seen by the person who asked the question. Obviously, I am distressed by the way poverty has been sort of restored to pre-war levels or even Edwardian levels, and something really has to be done about it. And it's basically only about the sort of a meanness with public funds, whilst we have the sort of super millionaires seem to have opted for Brexit because they know it gives them a marvellous opportunity to avoid and evade ever more tax. The Tory government actually printed vast quantities of money, all of which simply ended up in a massive housing boom. But if only they'd built more houses, then ordinary people might be able to afford to buy them, instead of the fact that people's incomes go entirely on rent and they have nothing left to eat, let alone pay for their mobile phone bills, which are important these days.
Oh, sorry, just based off that, you mentioned in the hustings there about housing and how the overexpansion of higher education specifically could go towards further council houses in the district, and mentioning things like media and politics as something as perhaps an overexpansion of the recent higher education. How can you comment further on this?
Well, it just seems to me that at one time maybe about 5% of school leavers sort of got higher education, and it was going to university was very rare. Then it gradually became sort of more and more common. Now we get to a stage where perhaps at least 40% of school leavers go to university, and often employers say, well, we're not going to take someone who hasn't got a degree. And the student is either left with huge debts, or if they don't pay them, the state has to pay them. But one way or another, it's been a big drain on the economy, because nothing comes for nothing, and the enormous expansion in higher education has costed. And I think in many ways a lot of money which might actually have been spent in council houses. But for instance, if you restricted student numbers by about 2/3, you would have a lot more housing in Canterbury, because one of the reasons for the shortage of housing in Canterbury is that so many houses are rented by students, and that takes up most of the rented sector.
So the students are the burden of the housing community in Canterbury.
It hasn't helped. It definitely hasn't helped. But, you know, I came to this university actually when it first opened in sort of 1966, which was the second year, and we just had two colleges sort of sticking out through the mud. So there has been this colossal expansion over the last 50 years, and one may wonder what it was all for. Somebody thought expansion of higher education was a good idea, and it has soaked up, one way and another, it's soaked up funds and resources, but nobody ever dares say anything. Oh, they say fees should be free or fees should be paid for, but nobody ever says, oh, why are universities doing such expensive education? Couldn't they turn out cheaper courses, for instance, or shorter courses, 3-year A-levels? We have to think about everything. Just as when it comes to the environment, we have to think about every issue. So higher education is surely, in a sense, environmental.
Yes. So before you briefly touched on Brexit, and due to how divisive and polarising it's been, do you think more independent candidates could help push a resolution sooner?
Well, I think that's possibly unlikely. I mean, I think it's one of the great tragedies of our time that with the polarisation of two big parties, even really the sort of third party, the Liberals, have been squeezed out, and therefore there is hardly any room for an independent voice. But at its grassroots, democracy is not democracy without independent candidates. If you or I can't stand for Parliament, where is the democracy? And a lot of people said to me, oh dear, this is a marginal constituency, you might be robbing Rosie Duffield of votes, and therefore, because of you, the Tory candidate might get in. Well, I have to say that every young man should have on his CV that he stood for Parliament. And as I'm 71, I think if I wait any longer, it will be too late. So this was my chance to stand for Parliament and enter the debate and throw out a few ideas. Why not?
Well, given that the majority is only 187 in this constituency, is this the right time to run? Is this the right general election, given how significant it is?
I'll be too old by the next general election.
Is this more of a personal goal as opposed to a constituency aid?
I've said in my manifesto, your vote is precious, use it wisely. So I make no further comment on that.
No, that's very good. I do appreciate that. That's all time we've got for today. Thank you so much for speaking to us. And make sure to check out all the other interviews on Inquire Media.
Okay, thank you. It's very nice of you to be here to interview me. Thank you.
No worries, thank you.